Hi, my name is Avery, and this is my story. I do want to say this little preface that I do not hold ill will towards any of the people that I have encountered throughout my life due to my own understanding of, I guess, mental illness, addiction, normal, people struggles that people have. So I try to be more understanding of where other people were at when it comes to the things that happened throughout my life. So I'll start with saying that I came from a very broken, unhealthy home life. I was unhoused at a very young age. I bounced from house to house. I started using at a very young age. Started around 13. But then I got gradually into more serious things, and my addiction was pretty bad by the time I was 18. I was bullied a lot in school, starting in the 3rd grade for being part of the LGBT community. Granted, I grew up in a different time, but I don't it's been a long time since I've been in school, so I don't really know how things play out for LGBT community nowadays, but when I was young, it was not well for me. I will say that my family was my first bully, which I feel like that's kind of a common theme for the LGBT community. So, but again, it was a different time and they had their own struggles, and I think that I was just a safe target, if that makes sense. I met my ex-boyfriend when I was 18 years old. Maybe I was 19. 18 to 19. And I was with him for 8 years. Honestly, it was a relationship that should not have lasted 8 years. Don't get me wrong. There were highs and lows, okay? And I was absolutely a very hard person to love. Because I was dealing with addiction, and then there was also just cheating, not on my end, but it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. He would cheat on me, I would feel like shit, so I would do drugs, then he would cheat on me because I was doing drugs. And it was just kind of a cycle that fed itself and fed my poor self-esteem, because again, I grew up not ever really feeling like I had anybody. And so by the time I got to him, I was a fucking black hole. I was a black hole of sadness. And then addiction, of course, did not help. And then the compromising things I was doing to stay not healthy, stay well, we'll say, also fed into the poor self-esteem. I had been in and out of therapy pretty much my whole life. There was just, I guess because I was still in active addiction, I could never really feel anything because I was constantly numbing myself. But then it was another self-fulfilling prophecy of me numbing it down and then not going to therapy high as fuck and not feeling connected to the therapist, and then leaving and feeling like shit and then getting high again. It just wasn't a good time. I was notorious for getting myself into some very, very, very shady situations. Things that left me very vulnerable and honestly ended up causing more trauma. But at my lowest, I hated myself. And I didn't care. I didn't necessarily want to unalive myself, but I also didn't care if I ceased to exist. At my lowest, I was struggling with very, very, very bad depression, to the point where there was a 3-week period I did not get out of bed unless it was to eat dinner and then go to sleep. And then I would wake up the next day and then go back to sleep until dinner time. And then the only time I'd get up to use the bathroom was when it was time for dinner. I wouldn't shower. I literally laid in bed for 3 weeks. That was it. I had no to do anything. I had stopped talking to all my friends because the friends that I did have, I stopped talking to because of addiction. And then the people that I thought were my friends, I also stopped talking to because of addiction. Like, the ones that I thought were my friends were still using, so I didn't want to be around them. And then the ones that were actually my friends, I stopped talking to because I went crazy. I struggled with identity crisis because of decisions I made that I never thought that I would make, and then the fact that I made them, that really fucked me up for a minute, to the point where I could not tell what was right and what was wrong, what was real and what was not. Like, it absolutely shattered my reality. So when I first got sober and they actually got my meds right, it became very hard for me to actually access my anger and sadness and things like that, because granted, I have been through a lot of crap. So, like, the things that, like, normally overwhelm other people, I'm like, that's not a real problem. Which is absolutely dismissive and, like, totally cunty of me, okay? But also, that's the plus side of having been through, like, some serious shit, is that when things happen, you're like, oh, well, I mean, I've been through worse, so this is fine. This isn't that bad. The downside was when I started, like, actually trying to do therapy, it was very hard for me to tap into those emotions. Because you need to feel it to heal it, as they say. I used to think people were talking about me. I would, like, think that the TV and radio were, like, saying things specifically for me. When people would, like, mention things that would, like the names, for instance, that's, like, what, like, something I still kind of, like, when I hear specific names, my brain, like, looks for answers. I mean, I'm getting better at being like, no, bitch, you're, like, crazy. Like, chill on that. But where I am today is, like, light years better than when I first originally started my journey into sobriety and dealing with my mental health. Other things that really helped was actually getting into a good therapist that I felt connected to, that was able to actually pull the emotions out of me, because up until probably 3 years ago, I probably had maybe 6 to 8 therapists, and I felt nothing up until the therapist I had 3 years ago. And then I got into another great one after that. Getting put on medications that absolutely worked for me, and still work for me. I like to live in the fantasy of thinking that maybe one day I'll be able to come off of the meds, but for right now, they work great for me, and I'm actually thriving in life. Which I remember there was a point that I literally thought I was gonna be put into a mental institution because I was crazy as fuck. And then, of course, I convinced myself that if I was, nobody would come see me, so I would be alone forever in a mental institution, and that was gonna be the rest of my life. So it's kind of crazy to think where I'm at right now with my sobriety and mental health. Granted, I am not doing amazing, but I'm not doing as bad as I was, okay? I personally still struggle with keeping my room clean. That is something that I think it's also, like, okay, granted, some of it probably is mental health, but the other part of me is like, a little bit of dirt isn't gonna kill me, so, like, it's not that big of a deal. So, other things that have helped me have been self-affirmations, getting outside into the sunshine. Sunshine has done wonders for me. And exercise. Exercise, surprisingly enough, helps you keep a clear mind. And when you look good, you feel good. And also, like, sweating, all that, like, it's a good energy cleanser to go out and work up a sweat and then come take a shower. It's a great time. If you're struggling with mental health or addiction, just know that it can get better. I was on drugs for 19 years before I got sober. Also, if you're struggling with mental health, know that it can get better. Just be kind to yourself and know that it takes time. If you made it this far, I love you. You are enough. You are worthy. And thanks for watching. Bye.